The coffee had gone cold hours ago, but Dr. Amanda Clark didn't notice. She sat hunched over her computer screen in the dim control room of the radio telescope facility, her eyes burning from staring at the data streams flowing across multiple monitors. The green glow of the displays painted strange shadows on her tired face as she adjusted the frequency settings for the 100th time that night. It was 3:47 a.m., and Amanda was alone in the facility except for the security guard making his rounds, somewhere in the building. She preferred working these late shifts when the radio interference was at its lowest and the signals from space came through cleaner. Most of her colleagues thought she was crazy for spending so many nights here, but Amanda had always been driven by curiosity about what might be out there in the vast darkness between stars. The radio telescope array stretched across several acres outside the building. Its massive dishes pointed toward different sections of the night sky. For the past 6 months, Amanda had been part of a project searching for signs of intelligent life beyond Earth. So far, they had found nothing but cosmic background radiation, pulsar signals, and the occasional burst from distant galaxies. Tonight felt different, though, even if she couldn't explain why. Amanda pushed her brown hair back from her face and reached for her coffee mug, grimacing when she tasted the bitter, cold liquid. She had been tracking an unusual signal for the past 2 hours, something that didn't match any known natural radio source. The signal came in short bursts, each lasting exactly 4.7 seconds, with gaps of 12.3 seconds between them. The pattern was too regular to be natural, but too complex to be human interference. She pulled up the signal analysis software and began running the data through various filters. The signal originated from somewhere in the direction of the constellation Draco, about 47 light-years from Earth. What made it strange was not just its artificial pattern, but the way it seemed to hop between different frequencies in a sequence that almost looked intentional. Amanda's heart began to beat faster as she realized what she might be looking at. This wasn't random noise or equipment malfunction. The mathematical precision of the timing, the frequency changes, the complex modulation patterns, everything pointed to one incredible possibility. This was an artificial signal from an intelligent source. She grabbed her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found Dr. Kevin Martinez, her research partner and closest friend at the facility. Kevin lived only 20 minutes away and had told her to call if anything important happened, no matter what time it was. Amanda hesitated for a moment, wondering if she should wait until morning to be sure, but her excitement won out. The phone rang 4 times before Kevin's sleepy voice answered. "Amanda, do you know what time it is?" "Kevin, you need to get down here right now," Amanda said, her voice trembling with excitement. "I think I found something big." "Found what? Another pulsar?" Kevin yawned audibly through the phone. "No, this is different. This is artificial, Kevin. I'm looking at a signal that's definitely not natural. The patterns are too complex, too organized. Someone or something is broadcasting this." There was silence on the other end of the line for several seconds. Kevin Martinez had worked in radio astronomy for 15 years, and he knew Amanda well, enough to understand that she didn't get excited over nothing. If she thought she had found something important, it was worth investigating. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, Kevin said, his voice now fully alert. "Don't touch anything until I get there, and don't call anyone else yet. If this is what you think it is, we need to be very careful about how we handle it." Amanda spent the next 20 minutes double and triple checking her data, making sure she hadn't made any mistakes in her analysis. The signal remained consistent, broadcasting its mysterious pattern from somewhere in the depths of space. She tried running it through different decoding programs, but nothing produced readable results. Whatever this was, it used a form of communication, completely unlike anything humans had developed. Kevin arrived exactly 20 minutes later, his usually neat hair sticking up in several directions and his shirt buttoned wrong. He had obviously dressed quickly and driven faster than he should have. Amanda met him at the security door and led him quickly to the control room. "Show me," Kevin said simply, settling into the chair next to Amanda's workstation. Amanda pulled up the signal display and played back the recordings she had made over the past few hours. Kevin watched in silence as the data scrolled across the screen, his expression growing more serious with each passing minute. He asked Amanda to replay certain sections and run different analysis programs, checking her work with the methodical approach that had made him one of the most respected researchers in the field. After an hour of examination, Kevin leaned back in his chair and rubbed his eyes. "This is impossible," he said quietly. "But you see it too, right? This isn't natural." "No, it's definitely artificial. The question is who or what is sending it." Kevin paused and looked at Amanda with a troubled expression. "There's something else, something that bothers me about this signal." "What do you mean?" Kevin pointed to one of the analysis windows on Amanda's screen. "Look at the encoding method. See how the information is layered? There are at least 3 different data streams running simultaneously, each one using a different modulation technique. This isn't just a simple message or beacon. This is sophisticated communication, the kind you'd use for transmitting large amounts of complex information." Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. "You mean like a conversation?" "Exactly, like a conversation. Or more precisely, like one side of a very technical discussion. Military technical, if I had to guess, based on the signal structure." They spent the next several hours working together to decode more of the signal. Kevin set up additional recording equipment to capture the transmission from multiple angles, while Amanda worked on breaking down the different information layers. As dawn approached, they began to make disturbing discoveries. The signal contained what appeared to be numerical data, coordinates, measurements, and calculations that seemed to describe planetary systems and technological capabilities. Some of the coordinate sets matched known star systems, including several that contained planets similar to Earth. Other data streams contained what looked like inventory lists, cataloging resources and populations. "Amanda," Kevin said, his voice tight with concern, "I think we need to call in some help with this. This is way beyond what the two of us can handle alone." "What kind of help?" "The kind that has security clearances and knows how to deal with information that might affect national security." Kevin saved their analysis files to an encrypted drive and began shutting down the monitoring equipment. "We need to document everything we've found and turn it over to people who know what to do with it." Amanda felt a mixture of excitement and fear as she realized the implications of their discovery. If they were right about what they had found, it would change everything. Humans thought they knew about their place in the universe. The signal proved that intelligent life existed beyond Earth. But more than that, it suggested that these aliens were actively studying human civilization. As they prepared to leave the facility that morning, Amanda took one last look at the data, streaming across her monitors. The signal continued its regular pattern, broadcasting its mysterious information to unknown recipients somewhere among the stars. She wondered if the senders knew that humans had developed the technology to detect their communications, or if they assumed Earth was still too primitive to eavesdrop on their conversations. Kevin locked the control room door behind them and turned to Amanda with a serious expression. "From this moment on, we don't discuss this with anyone except the people we're going to contact through official channels. This discovery could change the world, but it could also be dangerous if it falls into the wrong hands." Amanda nodded, understanding the weight of responsibility that now rested on their shoulders. They had stumbled upon proof that humans were not alone in the universe, but they had also discovered that someone was watching Earth very carefully. The question that kept running through her mind as they left the facility was simple but terrifying. What did the Watchers want, and why were they hiding their surveillance from humanity? The morning sun was rising over the radio telescope array as Amanda and Kevin drove away, carrying with them the most important discovery in human history. Neither of them could have imagined that their accidental interception of an alien communication would soon lead to revelations that would threaten the very survival of the human race. Behind them, the radio telescopes continued their silent vigil, still receiving the mysterious signal from the stars. The alien broadcast carried on, unaware that its intended secrecy had been broken by 2 curious scientists working through the night. The message continued to flow through space, carrying information that was never meant for human ears, but had found its way to human minds capable of understanding its terrible significance. The discovery that would change everything had begun with nothing more than scientific curiosity and a cold cup of coffee in the early hours of morning, when the universe seemed quiet enough to finally hear the whispers traveling between distant worlds. 3 days after Amanda and Kevin's discovery, a black sedan pulled up to the radio telescope facility at exactly 9:01 a.m. Dr. Amanda Clark watched from her office window as 2 people in dark suits got out of the car, followed by a man in military uniform. Her stomach tightened with nervous energy as she realized their quiet discovery was about to become something much bigger and more complicated. Kevin appeared in her doorway, his face pale and serious. "They're here," he said simply. "Dr. Peterson called 5 minutes ago. We're supposed to meet them in conference room A in 10 minutes. Amanda had barely slept since they filed their initial report with the facility director. Dr. Peterson had listened to their findings with growing amazement and concern, then immediately made several phone calls to contacts in Washington. Within hours, their discovery had reached the highest levels of government and military intelligence. The walk to the conference room felt longer than usual. Amanda's hands were slightly shaky as she carried the folder containing their analysis and recordings. She had spent the past 3 days continuing to monitor and decode the alien signal, making discoveries that were both fascinating and deeply troubling. Conference Room A was normally used for boring administrative meetings, but today it felt like the center of something historic. Dr. Peterson was already there along with the 3 visitors Amanda had seen arrive. The man in uniform stepped forward as they entered. "Dr. Clark, Dr. Martinez, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Jake Morrison from Space Force Intelligence," he said, extending his hand. "These are Dr. Lisa Parker from the Department of Defense Linguistics Institute and Sam Rodriguez from the National Security Agency's Cryptographic Division." Amanda shook hands with each of them, trying to read their expressions. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison had the bearing of someone used to dealing with classified information and serious threats. Dr. Parker was younger than Amanda had expected, probably in her early 30s, with intelligent eyes that seemed to take in every detail. Sam Rodriguez looked like he hadn't slept much recently, which Amanda found oddly comforting since she felt the same way. "Before we begin," Lieutenant Colonel Morrison said, "I need to inform you that everything discussed in this room is now classified at the highest levels. You cannot discuss any aspect of your discovery or our conversation with anyone outside this room without explicit authorization. Do you understand?" Amanda and Kevin both nodded. They had expected this moment, ever since they realized what they had found. "Good. Now please tell us exactly what you discovered and walk us through your analysis." Amanda opened her folder and began explaining their findings. She described the initial detection of the signal, its artificial characteristics, and the complex data streams they had identified. As she spoke, Dr. Parker took detailed notes while Sam Rodriguez studied printouts of the signal analysis. "Over the past 3 days, we've made significant progress in understanding the structure of the YO communication," Amanda continued. "The signal contains multiple information layers, and we've been able to partially decode some of them." She pulled out a series of charts and graphs showing their latest findings. "The most disturbing discovery is that much of the data appears to describe Earth and human civilization in great detail. We found coordinate sets that match major cities, military installations, and population centers around the world." Lieutenant Colonel Morrison leaned forward, his expression growing more serious. "You're certain about this?" Kevin spoke up for the first time. "We've double and triple checked our work. The coordinates are too accurate to be coincidental. Whoever is sending this signal has detailed knowledge of human infrastructure and capabilities." Dr. Parker looked up from her notes. "Have you been able to determine the language or communication method being used?" "That's where it gets really interesting," Amanda said. "The language appears to use mathematical concepts as its foundation, but it's overlaid with symbolic structures we've never seen before. However, we have identified some repeated patterns that seem to function as names or designations." She pointed to a section of decoded text on one of her charts. "This symbol sequence appears frequently and seems to refer to Earth, but not by any name we would recognize. The closest translation we can manage is something like Specimen World 4471. The room fell silent. Sam Rodriguez set down his papers and stared at Amanda. "Specimen World? That's our best interpretation based on the context and mathematical relationships in the message structure," Kevin confirmed. The implications are troubling. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison stood up and began pacing behind his chair. What else have you found? Any indication of who is sending these messages or where they're being sent? Amanda felt her heart rate increase as she prepared to share their most disturbing discovery. We believe we're intercepting communications between two different locations. The signal originates from somewhere in the direction of Draco constellation, but there are response signals coming from at least 3 other star systems. Based on the timing and signal strength, we think we're listening to a coordinated discussion between multiple alien civilizations. A discussion about what? Dr. Parker asked. Though her tone suggested she already suspected the answer, Kevin pulled out another chart showing their translation work. Based on the patterns we've identified, they appear to be discussing human technological development, military capabilities, and population distribution. They're particularly interested in our space program and nuclear capabilities. It gets worse, Amanda added quietly. We've identified references to other worlds using similar numerical designations. Specimen World 3847, Specimen World 5229, and others. But here's the thing that really scares us. When they reference these other worlds, they use past tense, linguistic structures. Sam Rodriguez looked up sharply. Past tense? As in these other worlds no longer exist? That's our interpretation. The mathematical context suggests these other specimen worlds are no longer active subjects of study. The room fell into heavy silence as everyone absorbed the implications of Amanda's words. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison stopped pacing and returned to his seat, his expression grim. How confident are you in these translations? He asked. About 70% on the basic meaning, maybe 40% on the specific details. Kevin replied honestly. We're working with completely alien concepts and thought patterns, but the mathematical relationships are consistent enough that we're confident about the general themes. Dr. Parker had been quiet for several minutes, but now she looked up with a troubled expression. Dr. Clark, have you identified any time references in these communications? Any indication of when events might occur? Amanda felt her stomach drop. This was the part she had been dreading most. Yes, we have. The messages contain what appear to be temporal markers using mathematical sequences we can partially understand. Based on our best analysis, they seem to be discussing some kind of timeline. She pulled out her final chart, the one that had kept her awake for the past 2 nights. The time markers suggest they're working towards some kind of deadline or scheduled event. We can't be completely certain, but our calculations indicate they're planning something to happen approximately 6 months from now. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison's face went completely pale. 6 months, are you certain? As certain as we can be with our current understanding of their communication methods. The mathematical progressions all point to a specific time period in our near future. Sam Rodriguez leaned back in his chair and ran his hands through his hair. So we have an unknown number of alien civilizations studying Earth like a laboratory specimen, discussing us in past tense contexts similar to other worlds that may no longer exist, and they're working towards some kind of deadline 6 months from now. That's our assessment based on the available data, Amanda confirmed. Dr. Parker closed her notebook and looked around the table. We need more information. Can you continue monitoring these communications and expanding your translation capabilities? Absolutely, Kevin said. But we're going to need help. This is too big for just the 2 of us to handle. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison nodded. You'll have whatever resources you need. We're going to establish a classified research unit here at the facility. Dr. Parker will head up the linguistics team. Sam will lead cryptographic analysis, and I'll coordinate with higher command levels. He stood up and looked directly at Amanda and Kevin. From this moment forward, you 2 are the most important people in this building. Your discovery may have given humanity its first and only warning about a threat we didn't even know existed. Amanda felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders like a heavy blanket. 3 days ago, she had been a curious scientist, looking for signs of life among the stars. Now she was part of a team racing against time to understand an alien threat that could potentially end human civilization. There's one more thing, she said quietly. Something that might be important. Everyone looked at her expectantly. The aliens seem to assume their communications are secure. The encryption methods they're using are sophisticated, but they're not trying to hide the fact that they're communicating. It's more like they're using privacy measures against other aliens, not against us. What does that mean? Lieutenant Colonel Morrison asked. Kevin answered for her. It means they don't think we're advanced enough to detect or understand their signals. They're not even considering the possibility that humans might be listening to their conversations. Sam Rodriguez smiled grimly. So they have no idea we know about them. Exactly. We have one advantage in this situation. They think we're still completely ignorant about their existence and their plans. Dr. Parker reopened her notebook and began writing rapidly. That changes everything about how we need to approach this situation. If they don't know we're aware of them, we have the element of surprise. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison moved toward the door. I need to brief my superiors immediately. We're going to need to involve the highest levels of government and military leadership. This isn't just a scientific discovery anymore, it's a matter of national and global security. As the meeting broke up, Amanda remained in her chair, staring at the charts and graphs spread across the table. In just 1 week, her entire understanding of humanity's place in the universe had been turned upside down. Humans were not alone, but they were also not safe. Somewhere among the stars, unknown intelligences were making plans that could determine the fate of every person on Earth. The most terrifying part was the realization that this conversation had been going on for who knows how long, and humans had only accidentally stumbled into hearing it. If Amanda hadn't been working that particular night shift, if she hadn't been curious enough to investigate an unusual signal, humanity might have remained completely unaware of the threat until it was too late. Now they had 6 months to figure out what the aliens were planning and find some way to stop it. 6 months to save the world from enemies they had never known existed, using intelligence gathered from conversations they were never supposed to hear. 2 weeks after the classified meeting, Amanda Clark found herself in a place she had never imagined visiting. The Situation Room deep beneath the White House. The underground chamber buzzed with activity as military officers, scientists, and government officials worked around the clock to understand and respond to the alien threat. President Helen Carter sat at the head of a large oval table, her face showing the strain of sleepless nights and impossible decisions. Around the table sat the most powerful people in the country: the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Director of the CIA, and leaders from NASA and other space agencies. Amanda felt completely out of place among these titans of power, but she knew her knowledge was crucial to whatever decisions would be made in this room. Lieutenant Colonel Jake Morrison stood at a large display screen showing the alien signal, analysis that had consumed Amanda's life for the past month. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Clark and her team have made several breakthrough discoveries in the past 2 weeks that fundamentally change our understanding of the threat we're facing. Amanda stood up nervously, her hands slightly trembling as she approached the display. She had briefed military officers before, but never at this level, never with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. We've successfully decoded approximately 30% of the alien communications, she began, her voice growing stronger as she focused on the science. What we've learned is both encouraging and terrifying. She clicked to the first slide, showing a complex diagram of signal patterns. The aliens call themselves the Galactic Council. Based on their communications, this is a confederation of 12 different alien species that has been watching Earth for over 200 years. Secretary of Defense Patricia Walsh leaned forward. 200 years? They've been observing us since the early 1800s? Yes, ma'am. Our analysis suggests they began systematic observation when humans started showing rapid technological advancement during the Industrial Revolution. They've been cataloging our progress ever since. Amanda clicked to the next slide, showing timeline, comparisons. Here's what really worries them. In their experience, most intelligent species take thousands of years to develop, from basic agriculture to space travel. Humans did it in about 200 years. From their perspective, we're developing at an impossible rate. General Ryan Foster, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, studied the timeline display. What exactly do they find threatening about our development speed? Dr. Lisa Parker, who had become Amanda's closest collaborator in the translation efforts, stood up to answer. That's where the story gets really disturbing, General. We've found references in their communications to a species they call the Devourers. According to the alien records, the Devourers were another rapidly developing species that nearly destroyed the entire galaxy about 3,000 years ago. The room fell silent. President Carter spoke for the first time since Amanda began her briefing. Are you telling me these aliens think we're going to become like these Devourers? That's exactly what we're telling you, Madam President, Amanda replied. The Galactic Council has classified humanity as a Class 5 extinction risk. In their communications, they specifically compare our development pattern to the early stages of the Devourer civilization. Sam Rodriguez, who had been working around the clock on cryptographic analysis, added his findings. We've also discovered that the Council has protocols for dealing with Class 5 risks. They call it a controlled extinction event. Based on our decoding work, this involves systematic elimination of the threatening species before they can develop interstellar travel capabilities. Amanda clicked to a new slide showing population and infrastructure data. The aliens have incredibly detailed information about human civilization. They know the locations of every major city, military base, nuclear facility, and space installation on Earth. They've mapped our transportation networks, communication systems, and power grids. How is that possible? Asked CIA Director Robert Shen. They've been using observation satellites positioned in our solar system for decades, Amanda explained. We found references to monitoring stations hidden in the asteroid belt and several of Jupiter's moons. They've been watching us constantly, and we never knew they were there. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison stepped forward again. The timeline we identified 2 weeks ago has been confirmed. The Galactic Council has scheduled what they call the final assessment for approximately 5 months from today. If they determine that humanity poses an unacceptable risk, they will proceed with the controlled extinction event immediately afterward. President Carter stood up and walked to a wall map showing global military installations. What kind of capabilities are we dealing with? How advanced are these aliens compared to us? Dr. Parker consulted her notes. Based on their communications, they have technology that's probably several hundred years ahead of ours. They have faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and the ability to manipulate matter at the atomic level. In a direct military confrontation, we wouldn't stand a chance. The room erupted in concerned murmurs and whispered conversations. Amanda could see the fear in the faces around the table, but also something else: determination. These were people who had spent their careers dealing with threats to national security, and they weren't going to give up without a fight. General Foster stood up and addressed the room. So we can't fight them directly. What other options do we have? Amanda had been dreading this question, but she also had an answer that might surprise everyone. Actually, we've discovered something in their communications that might give us a significant advantage. She clicked to a new slide showing psychological analysis data. The aliens are deeply puzzled by human behavior. Their communications contain numerous references to what they call our unnatural resilience and impossible adaptability. They've run thousands of computer simulations trying to predict how humans will respond to various scenarios, but our behavior consistently breaks. Their predictive models. NASA Administrator Julie Baker looked up from her tablet. What does that mean in practical terms? It means they don't understand us, Amanda explained. Every other species they've encountered has followed predictable patterns of development and behavior. Humans don't. We adapt too quickly, we innovate too rapidly, and we respond to threats in ways they can't anticipate. Sam Rodriguez nodded enthusiastically. Amanda's right. We found multiple instances in their communications where they express frustration about humanity's chaotic problem-solving methods and illogical tactical decisions. They literally cannot predict what we're going to do next. President Carter returned to her seat, a thoughtful expression on her face. So our unpredictability is actually a strategic advantage? More than that, Amanda said, clicking to her final slide. We think it might be the key to survival. The aliens have spent decades developing their plan based on the assumption that humans will respond like every other species they've encountered. But what if we don't? Lieutenant Colonel Morrison stepped forward with a confident smile. What Dr. Clark is suggesting, Madam President, is that we turn our greatest perceived weakness into our greatest strength. Instead of trying to match their technology or fight them on their terms, we do what humans do best. We improvise, adapt, and completely change the rules of the game. General Foster studied the data on the screens around the room. What kind of plan are you proposing? Amanda took a deep breath before answering. We don't wait for them to attack us. We use their own communication system against them. We've learned to decode their signals, which means we can potentially encode our own messages using their technology. We make first contact on our terms, not theirs. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications of Amanda's suggestion. Secretary Walsh was the first to speak. You're talking about using their own technology to contact them. Is that even possible? Dr. Parker nodded excitedly. We've been working on this for the past week. The quantum communication frequencies they use are incredibly sophisticated, but we think we can reverse engineer enough of their technology to send our own messages. But what would we say to them? President Carter asked. Amanda smiled for the first time since entering the Situation Room. We tell them the truth. We let them know that we've been listening to their communications, that we know about their plans and that we're not going to cooperate with their expectations. We show them that humans don't follow their predictive models because we make our own rules. Sam Rodriguez pulled up additional data on his laptop. There's something else we discovered that might be crucial. The Galactic Council isn't unanimous in their decision about humanity. We've identified at least 3 member species that have expressed concerns about the extinction plan. They think the Council is being too hasty. You mean we might have allies among the aliens? General Foster asked. Potentially, Amanda replied, but only if we can prove that humans are not the threat the Council believes we are. We need to demonstrate that our rapid development and adaptability make us valuable partners, not dangerous enemies. President Carter stood up again and looked around the table at her advisors. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the most important decision in human history. We can either wait passively for these aliens to judge us and possibly destroy us, or we can take control of the situation and force them to deal with us as equals. She walked back to the display screen showing Amanda's analysis. Dr. Clark, how long would it take to develop the capability to send messages using their communication system? Amanda looked at Dr. Parker and Sam Rodriguez before answering. If we get unlimited resources and support, maybe 6 to 8 weeks. But we'd need access to the most advanced technology available, including quantum computers and experimental communication equipment. You'll have whatever you need, President Carter said firmly. As of this moment, this project has the highest priority classification. Every resource of the United States government is at your disposal. She turned to address the entire room. We're also going to need international cooperation on an unprecedented scale. This threat affects all of humanity, not just Americans. I want contacts made with every major world leader within 24 hours. General Foster nodded and began making notes. What about our military response? Should we begin preparing defenses? Yes, but not the kind you're thinking, Lieutenant Colonel Morrison replied. Our defense isn't going to be weapons or shields. Our defense is going to be proving that humans are too valuable and too unpredictable to eliminate. Amanda felt a surge of hope as she watched the most powerful people in America commit to a plan that seemed impossible just weeks ago. They were going to attempt something that had never been done before, forcing an advanced alien civilization to negotiate with humanity as equals rather than judge them as specimens. As the meeting broke up and people began making urgent phone calls and preparations, Amanda realized that her accidental discovery of an alien signal had set in motion events that would determine the future of human civilization. In just a few months, humanity would make contact with the galaxy's most powerful alliance, not as conquered subjects or destroyed enemies, but as a species demanding to be heard. The next phase of human evolution was about to begin, and it would be unlike anything the Galactic Council had ever experienced before. Humans were about to teach the galaxy that some species simply refuse to follow the rules others have written for them. 6 weeks after the White House meeting, Amanda Clark stood in a massive underground facility that hadn't existed 2 months earlier. The complex built beneath the Nevada desert housed the most advanced technology humanity had ever assembled. Computer servers filled room after room, their cooling systems humming constantly as they processed the enormous amounts of data needed for humanity's most desperate gamble. Engineer Marcus Bell wiped sweat from his forehead as he made final adjustments to the quantum communication array. The device looked like something from a science fiction movie, a collection of crystalline structures surrounded by electromagnetic field generators and connected to supercomputers that filled an entire building. Marcus had been working 18-hour days for weeks, reverse engineering alien technology from intercepted communications. "How much longer until we're ready for the test?" Amanda asked, checking her watch nervously. They were running out of time. The alien final assessment was scheduled to begin in less than 4 months, and humanity's survival depended on making contact before that deadline. "Another 6 hours, maybe 8, Marcus replied, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. "The quantum field stabilizers are giving us trouble. The aliens use physics principles we're only beginning to understand." Dr. Lisa Parker approached them carrying a thick folder of translation work. "We've finished decoding the communication protocols. If Marcus can get the hardware working, we should be able to send messages that the Galactic Council will recognize as legitimate transmissions." Amanda nodded and walked to the central control room where dozens of technicians monitored the progress of humanity's most important project. Through the thick windows, she could see Admiral Chris Taylor coordinating with military commanders from around the world. The Emergency Coalition Command had been established just 3 weeks earlier, uniting every major military force on Earth under a single leadership structure. The international cooperation had been remarkable and completely unprecedented. When President Carter shared the alien threat with world leaders, the response was immediate and unanimous. Political differences that had seemed impossible to resolve were set aside overnight. Countries that had been enemies for decades suddenly found themselves working together to save human civilization. Emma Johnson, one of the world's best computer specialists, looked up from her workstation. "Amanda, we've got something interesting from the Network Infiltration Project. You need to see this." Amanda hurried to Emma's station where multiple screens displayed complex data streams and code structures. For the past month, Emma had been leading a team of hackers and computer experts in an attempt to access the alien communication network directly. It was an incredibly risky strategy that could alert the Galactic Council to humanity's capabilities, but the potential intelligence value was too important to ignore. "We managed to establish a connection to one of their data storage systems," Emma explained, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "The security was incredibly sophisticated, but they never designed it to keep out a species that thinks like humans do." On her main screen, Emma displayed what looked like a vast library of information, organized in 3-dimensional structures that hurt Amanda's eyes to look at directly. This is just a small portion of their database. The amount of information they have about Earth and humanity is staggering. "What kind of information?" Amanda asked. "Everything. Detailed records of human historical development, genetic analysis of different human populations, psychological profiles of world leaders, economic and military assessments of every country on Earth. They know more about us than we know about ourselves." Emma clicked through several data sections showing Amanda records that dated back centuries. "But here's the really interesting part. Look at these assessment reports from different council members." The screen displayed what appeared to be evaluation documents written by various alien species. Even with their improved translation capabilities, Amanda could only understand portions of the text, but the general meaning was clear enough. "They're arguing about us," Amanda realized. "Some of them think the extinction plan is wrong." "Exactly. At least 4 of the 12 council species have filed formal objections to the elimination protocol. They think humanity might be valuable as allies rather than dangerous as enemies." Amanda studied the alien reports, feeling a spark of hope for the first time in weeks. "What are their specific objections?" Emma highlighted several sections of translated text. Species designation Zephyrian Collective argues that human creativity and adaptability could benefit the entire galaxy. The crystalline minds believe that human emotional intelligence is unique and should be preserved for study. The void swimmers think that humanity's rapid technological development could help solve several problems the Council has been unable to address. And the other 8 species? They're convinced that humans are too dangerous to leave alive. They cite the Devourer incident as precedent and argue that the risk is too great to ignore. Amanda felt her excitement growing as she realized the implications of Emma's discovery. So the Council isn't unified. If we can somehow contact the species that oppose the extinction plan, we might be able to create a split in their alliance. That's exactly what I was thinking, Emma said. But there's something else. I managed to download copies of their communication protocols and encryption methods. If we can get Marcus's quantum array working, we won't just be able to send messages to the Council. We'll be able to send targeted messages to specific member species. Dr. Tony Ramirez, who had been working closely with Amanda's original team, approached them with a concerned expression. Emma, how long were you connected to their network? Is there any chance they detected the intrusion? Emma checked her monitoring displays before answering. I was only connected for about 4 minutes, and I used routing methods that should have made the access appear to come from one of their own systems. But there's always a risk they might notice something eventually. Amanda felt a chill of fear at the thought that their secret advantage might be discovered. If the aliens learned that humans had been listening to their communications and accessing their networks, it could trigger the extinction event immediately. How much data did you manage to extract? She asked. About 40 terabytes of raw information. It'll take weeks to analyze all of it. But what I've seen so far changes everything about how we should approach this situation. Admiral Taylor entered the control room, his uniform showing the strain of weeks without adequate sleep. Behind him walked General Foster and several other high-ranking military officers from different countries. Dr. Clark, we need an update on the communication project. The President and other world leaders are asking when we'll be ready to make contact. Amanda looked through the windows at Marcus's team still working frantically on the quantum array. We're very close, Admiral. Maybe 12 hours until we can attempt the first transmission. And what exactly are we going to transmit? Dr. Parker stepped forward with her translation folder. We've prepared several different message options depending on our strategic goals. We can send a simple greeting to announce our awareness of the Council, or we can go directly to specific demands for negotiation. General Foster studied the alien database displays on Emma's screens. What about this intelligence you've gathered from their network? How does that change our approach? Emma pulled up a new set of data showing the internal Council debates about humanity. It changes everything, General. Instead of trying to convince all 12 species that we're not a threat, we can focus on the 4 species that already have doubts about the extinction plan. If we can get them firmly on our side, we might be able to prevent the Council from reaching a unanimous decision. Admiral Taylor nodded thoughtfully. A split decision in the Council could delay or prevent the extinction event entirely. That's the theory, Amanda confirmed. But we're going to have to be very careful about how we approach this. If we come across as manipulative or threatening, we could drive the moderate species towards supporting extinction. Dr. Ramirez had been quietly studying the alien data, but now he looked up with an excited expression. I think I found something important in these Council records. Look at this psychological analysis of human behavior. He pointed to a section of translated text that made Amanda's heart race. The aliens had identified what they called critical human characteristics that distinguished humans from other intelligent species they had encountered. According to their analysis, humans have an unprecedented capacity for cooperative problem-solving under extreme stress. Most species become more isolated and territorial when threatened, but humans do the opposite. We unite and work together more effectively when facing existential threats. Amanda read through the alien assessment, amazed by their clinical accuracy. They're describing exactly what happened when we learned about their existence. Instead of panicking or fragmenting, humanity came together in ways we never thought possible. There's more, Dr. Ramirez continued. They're also puzzled by human emotional responses to impossible situations. They note that humans often become more creative and resourceful when facing problems that should logically be unsolvable. General, Foster smiled grimly. So they've identified our greatest strengths, but they interpret them as threats rather than assets. Exactly. They don't understand that the same qualities that make humans unpredictable also make us valuable partners. They see our adaptability as dangerous because it breaks their predictive models, but they don't realize it could benefit their entire civilization. Marcus Bell's voice crackled over the intercom system. Control room, we're ready for the first test of the quantum communication array. All systems are online and stable. Amanda felt her stomach tighten with nervous anticipation. This was the moment that would determine whether humanity had any chance of survival. If the quantum array worked, they could make contact with the Galactic Council on their own terms. If it failed, they would be left waiting helplessly for the aliens to judge and possibly destroy them. All right, everyone, Admiral Taylor announced, to the control room. This is it. We're about to make the most important phone call in human history. Amanda took her position at the primary communication console, her hands trembling slightly as she prepared to send humanity's first intentional message to an alien civilization. Dr. Parker stood beside her with the carefully crafted text they had spent weeks perfecting. Emma monitored the network infiltration systems, ready to route their message through the alien communication protocols. Through the control room windows, Amanda could see hundreds of technicians and scientists holding their breath as they waited for the test that would determine the future of human civilization. In a few minutes, they would know whether humanity's greatest gamble had any chance of success. The quantum array hummed to life, its crystalline structures glowing with energy that seemed to bend space around them. Marcus's voice came through the speakers with barely controlled excitement. All systems are operational. We have successful quantum field stabilization. The array is ready to transmit. Amanda looked around the control room at the faces of people who had dedicated their lives to this moment. Scientists, soldiers, engineers, and leaders from around the world had come together to attempt something that had never been done before. They were about to announce humanity's presence to the galaxy not as subjects waiting for judgment, but as equals demanding to be heard. Send the message, Admiral Taylor ordered. Amanda pressed the transmission key and humanity's voice reached out to touch the stars for the first time. In the quantum depths of space, their message began its journey to the Galactic Council, carrying with it the hopes and determination of an entire species that refused to accept extinction without a fight. 4 months after humanity sent their first message to the Galactic Council, Amanda Clark stood in the United Nations General Assembly Hall, watching history unfold. The massive chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from every nation on Earth waited for the most important event in human civilization. Today, the aliens would arrive. The response to humanity's initial contact had come just 3 days after their transmission. The message was brief and formal, written in perfectly translated English that showed the aliens had been studying human languages for far longer than anyone had imagined. The Galactic Council had agreed to send a diplomatic delegation to Earth, but their tone suggested they were more curious than threatened by humanity's unexpected communication abilities. Ambassador Nicole Thompson adjusted her headset as she prepared to address not just the United Nations, but the entire world through live broadcasts in every major language. Standing beside her were Admiral Chris Taylor, Dr. Amanda Clark, and representatives from the major space agencies. The weight of speaking for all humanity rested on Nicole's shoulders, and everyone in the room could see the pressure in her careful, measured movements. They're requesting permission to enter Earth's atmosphere, reported Lieutenant Colonel Jake Morrison from his position at the communication console. Their ship is currently positioned just beyond our moon. Amanda felt her heart racing as she realized the moment they had all worked toward was finally here. 6 months ago, she had been a simple radio astronomer looking for signs of life among the stars. Now she was about to witness the first official meeting between humans and an advanced alien civilization. President Helen Carter's voice came through the secure communication link from the White House. Ambassador Thompson, you are authorized to grant landing permission. The entire world is watching, and we're counting on you to represent humanity with strength and dignity. Nicole took a deep breath and spoke into her microphone. Galactic Council vessel. This is Earth's diplomatic. Representative Nicole Thompson. You have permission to land at the designated coordinates. We welcome you to our world. The response came immediately, spoken in perfectly accented English, with just a hint of something alien in the pronunciation. Acknowledged, Earth representative. We will arrive at your location in approximately 1 hour. We request that only essential personnel be present for initial contact. Amanda joined the small group that would witness humanity's first face-to-face meeting with aliens. Dr. Lisa Parker carried the complete records of their communication analysis, while Emma Johnson monitored electronic systems to ensure the aliens weren't attempting any technological interference. General Ryan Foster represented Earth's military forces, though everyone hoped his presence would be purely symbolic. Exactly 1 hour later, a shape appeared in the sky above New York City that made every person watching hold their breath. The alien ship was nothing like the angular mechanical designs humans had imagined in science fiction movies. Instead, it looked organic, like a massive crystalline flower that caught and reflected sunlight in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The vessel was beautiful and alien in ways that no human mind could have conceived. The ship landed silently in the specially prepared area outside the United Nations building, its crystal petals folding inward as it settled to the ground. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then a section of the ship's surface became transparent, and the first alien being stepped onto Earth. Amanda had expected to feel fear or wonder when she saw actual aliens, but her dominant emotion was surprise. The beings emerging from the ship were so different from each other that it was immediately obvious they represented multiple species. The lead figure was tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to shift between different shades of blue and silver. Behind it came creatures that looked like living geometric shapes, beings made of what appeared to be controlled energy, and others that defied easy description. The lead alien approached Ambassador Thompson with movements that were elegant, but clearly not human. When it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate in Amanda's bones. I am Zeth Prime, representing the Galactic Council in this unprecedented meeting. We must confess, humans of Earth, that your recent communications have caused considerable discussion among our member species. Nicole stepped forward confidently, showing no sign of the nervousness Amanda knew she must be feeling. Welcome to Earth, Zeth Prime. We are honored by your visit, though we understand the circumstances that brought you here are complex. Indeed they are, Zeth Prime replied, its shifting features somehow conveying what might have been amusement. Your species has presented us with a situation we have never encountered before. In our extensive experience with developing civilizations, none have ever detected our surveillance communications, much less used our own technology to contact us directly. Dr. Parker stepped forward with her translation records. We've been monitoring your communications for several months. We know about the final assessment and the plans for what you call a controlled extinction event. The alien delegation exchanged what appeared to be surprised glances, their various forms of communication creating a brief symphony of lights, sounds, and electromagnetic fluctuations that the human observers couldn't interpret. You have been listening to our private council discussions? Asked one of the geometric aliens, its voice sounding like mathematical equations spoken aloud. Emma Johnson smiled and pulled out a tablet displaying some of the intelligence they had gathered. We've done more than listen. We've accessed your databases and learned about your internal debates regarding humanity's fate. We know that your council is divided about whether we represent a threat or an opportunity. Zeth Prime's color patterns shifted to what Amanda hoped indicated interest rather than anger. Fascinating. Your technological capabilities are far more advanced than our assessment suggested. How did you accomplish this infiltration? Admiral Taylor answered for the human delegation. The same way humans accomplish most things, Zeth Prime. We adapted, improvised, and refused to accept limitations that others assumed were absolute. This is precisely what concerns many of our member species, Zeth Prime said, its tone becoming more serious. Your unpredictability, your rapid advancement, your refusal to follow established patterns of development. These characteristics led to your classification as a potential galactic threat. Amanda felt this was her moment to speak. She had started this entire chain of events with her accidental discovery of the alien signal, and she felt responsible for helping humanity through the crisis she had uncovered. Zeth Prime, we understand your concerns about human unpredictability, but we'd like to propose that you are viewing our characteristics from the wrong perspective. The alien turned its attention to Amanda, its features shifting in patterns she was beginning to recognize as curiosity. Explain. You see our rapid development and adaptability as dangerous because it breaks your predictive models. But those same qualities could be incredibly valuable to your galactic community. We've learned from your databases that the Council has been struggling with certain problems for centuries. Maybe you need a species that thinks differently. Dr. Ramirez stepped forward with data they had prepared specifically for this moment. Our analysis of your Council records shows several ongoing challenges. Resource depletion in the outer spiral, arms, technological stagnation among older civilizations, and the recurring threat of aggressive species like the Devourers you mentioned. Human creativity and problem-solving abilities could help address these issues, Nicole added. Instead of seeing us as a threat to be eliminated, consider us as potential partners who bring new perspectives to old problems. Zeth Prime was quiet. For a long moment, its color patterns cycling through what appeared to be deep consideration. The other alien delegates engaged in their complex multi-species communication, creating a display of lights and sounds that was strangely beautiful. Finally, Zeth Prime spoke again. Your proposal is unexpected. In all our previous encounters with developing species, none have ever suggested partnership as an alternative to assessment and judgment. That's because you've never encountered humans before, General Foster said with a slight smile. We don't wait to be judged. We make our own opportunities. This conversation demonstrates exactly what troubles some council members, admitted one of the energy beings. Your responses are consistently outside our behavioral prediction models. We calculated 847,000 possible scenarios for this meeting. None of them included your species proposing partnership or demonstrating the technological capability to infiltrate our systems. Amanda felt a surge of hope as she realized the aliens were genuinely surprised by humanity's approach. That's because you made one critical error in your calculations. You assumed we would react like every other species you've encountered. But humans don't follow existing patterns. We create new ones. Emma added, your own databases contain psychological analyses of human behavior under stress. You noted that humans become more cooperative and creative when facing impossible situations. This meeting is proof of that analysis. Zeth Prime's color patterns shifted to what Amanda was beginning to recognize as something like approval. Indeed, your response to learning of our existence and our plans has been unlike anything in our historical records. Instead of panic, despair, or aggressive defensiveness, you chose curiosity, cooperation, and strategic innovation. Which brings us to our proposal, Nicole said, pulling out a formal document they had prepared. Humanity requests membership in the Galactic Council, not as a junior species seeking guidance, but as equals who have proven our capability to contribute to galactic civilization. The alien delegation fell silent. Several of them began communicating in electromagnetic patterns that made the air around them shimmer with energy. Amanda could tell this was not a response they had prepared for. Membership? Zeth Prime finally asked. You understand that species typically require thousands of years of monitored development before being considered for council participation? And you understand that humans typically don't wait thousands of years for anything, Admiral? Taylor replied. We've demonstrated that we can detect your surveillance, decode your communications, access your databases, and communicate using your technology. We've also shown that we can unite our entire species in response to an external threat. What more evidence do you need of our readiness? Dr. Parker stepped forward with their final argument. Zeth Prime, your own records show that the Council has been essentially unchanged for millennia. You've achieved stability, but at the cost of innovation. Human membership could bring fresh perspectives and new solutions to problems your civilization has been unable to solve. Zeth Prime turned to confer with the other alien delegates, their multi-species communication creating a complex display that lasted for several minutes. When they turned back to the human representatives, Amanda could sense that something fundamental had changed in their attitude. "Humans of Earth," Seth Prime said formally, "the Galactic Council has never faced a situation like this. Your species has forced us to reconsider assumptions we have held for thousands of years. You have proven that our assessment protocols are inadequate for evaluating truly unique civilizations." The alien paused, its color pattern shifting to something that looked almost like respect. "Therefore, the Council will postpone the final assessment indefinitely. Instead, we propose a trial membership period during which humanity will work with Council member species to address mutual challenges and demonstrate the value of your unique perspective." Amanda felt tears streaming down her face as she realized what had just happened. Humanity had not only avoided extinction, but had actually achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had forced an advanced alien civilization to change its fundamental approach to evaluating younger species. "There is one condition," Seth Prime added. "Humanity must prove that your rapid development and aggressive tendencies can be channeled constructively rather than destructively. You will have opportunities to demonstrate that you are partners, not conquerors." Nicole smiled and extended her hand in the traditional human gesture of agreement. "Seth Prime, humanity accepts your challenge. We look forward to showing the galaxy what humans can accomplish when we work together with others toward common goals." As Seth Prime reached out to clasp Nicole's hand with its own alien appendage, Amanda realized that her accidental discovery of an alien signal had led to the most important moment in human history. Humanity had not only survived first contact, but had emerged as the newest member of a galactic community, bringing their uniquely human gifts of adaptability, creativity, and determination to challenges that spanned the stars. The species that was never supposed to hear the signal had not only heard it, but had used it to rewrite the rules of galactic civilization itself.